Elden Ring is more than just a masterpiece of game design. It's a triumph of storytelling, world building, and emotional depth. While its gameplay gets most of the spotlight, today we're focusing on what lies beneath the narrative. This world, the lands between, is vast, mysterious, and densely packed with lore. And in this video, we're going to explore it in full. I'll walk you through the story of Elden Ring from start to finish. Not just explaining what happens, but digging deeper into the how and why. Why do the characters act the way they do? What drives their choices? And what are the larger forces shaping this world? We'll also try to unravel some of the more confusing or hidden lore threads, the ones the game leaves up to interpretation. The beginning, the shattered age of Elden Ring. The Elden Ring, an ancient force that governed reality, was shattered. With its fall, Queen Marika, the divine ruler of this realm, mysteriously vanished. In her absence, her children, powerful demigods, descended into chaos, warring over fragments of the broken ring. Each sought dominion, but none could become the new Elden Lord. Despite their strength, the throne remained empty. In this vacuum, a new hope emerged, the Tarnished. Guided by a mysterious force called Grace, the Tarnished, exiles stripped of their status long ago were summoned back. Their task, to rise above the failed ambitions of the demigods and claim the title of Elden Lord. That's the player's role in Elden Ring, to carve a path through conflict, legacy, and ruin to seize what no one else could. That much is straightforward, but everything else, that's where the true mystery begins. The origin of the world deep beneath Leyndell, buried in the sewers. You encounter Hyetta, an enigmatic NPC tied to a disturbing but illuminating questline. She speaks of a time before all things, when there existed only the One Great. This primordial force shaped the foundations of the world, until it was disrupted by the arrival of the Greater Will. What exactly the Greater Will is remains unclear. It may be a cosmic presence or divine intelligence. But what's known is this: it brought with it the concepts of birth, soul, sin, and death. Like a cosmic Big Bang, this act gave structure to existence, fracturing the timeless void into form and conflict, much like the Great Ones from Bloodborne or the eldritch gods of H.P. Lovecraft. The One Great and the Greater Will are unknowable, forces rather than figures. Some theorize that the One Great wasn't a being, but a status quo. The Greater Will, by bringing order and sin into the world, broke that balance. What followed was an endless struggle for control and survival. The Elden Ring and the Two Fingers, central to the Greater Will's vision, are two entities, the Elden Ring and the Two Fingers. The Elden Ring isn't just a relic. It's a complex arrangement of runes that define the very laws of reality. To manipulate the ring is to reshape the world itself. The Two Fingers act as messengers of the Greater Will, selecting worthy mortals known as Empyreans, those with potential to become gods, and granting them shadows to protect them. Queen Marika was one such Empyrean. Chosen by the Two Fingers and gifted divine status, she redefined the world through the Golden Order, her doctrine of cosmic and social harmony. But before her reign came something older and stranger. The Age of Dragons and the first Elden Lord. Before Marika, before even the Erdtree, the world was ruled by ancient dragons. Immortal and mighty, they were the first to wield the power of the Elden Ring. The first Elden Lord wasn't a mortal man, but a dragon nigh Placidusax. His memory and legacy linger in the ruins of Farum Azula, where time and stone have twisted into a decaying tribute to his forgotten era. The difference between a god and an Elden Lord is key. Marika was a god, an Empyrean chosen by the Greater Will. But Placidusax, though a lord, ruled in a time before Marika and the Erdtree. He served a god who eventually fled, leaving him to wait in eternity for a return that would never come. The Crucible, the world before the Golden Order, before the Erdtree flourished in gold. It existed in a primal state known as the Crucible. This wasn't a time of civilization, it was raw, untamed life. A chaotic blend of species and forms, where feathers, scales, horns, and wings coexisted. Crucible Knights, elite warriors whose armor channels this primordial force, offer the clearest insights into that era. Their spells, known as aspects of the Crucible, tap into a deeper, more ancient vitality. The Crucible was not just a time or object, but a condition of life before divine order, when all living things were intertwined, and no single form dominated. Interestingly, the term crucible itself refers to a vessel used in metalwork to refine materials under heat. Symbolically, the crucible represents a forge, a violent, boiling blend of all existence before it was purified as or corrupted by divine law. Rejection of the crucible and the rise of discrimination. With the rise of Marika's golden order, aspects of the crucible were demonized. Beings born with remnants of that ancient era, like horns, wings, or scales, were branded as impure. The Omen, for instance, are born with horns and immense power. Most are killed at birth or exiled to the sewers of Lendel. Even their killers wear terrifying masks and wield weapons carved from other Omen, enforcing their status as cursed outcasts. Demihumans and misbegotten. Other descendants of the Crucible era are treated only slightly better. They are often enslaved, such as in Castle Morn, or viewed as lesser beings. Crucible-era traits, once signs of divinity, have become symbols of shame. The world has traded wild equality for rigid hierarchy. Civilization vs. Survival, the Golden Order, brought structure, yes, but also control. It replaced chaos with law, the wild with the civilized. Some might see this as progress, as the natural evolution from primal struggle to divine order. But others might see it as a betrayal of life's original freedom. Where the Crucible was fluid and diverse, the Golden Order demands conformity. The Erdtree shines brightly now, but its roots lie in a far darker soil, one that still pulses beneath the surface of the lands between. Conclusion: the story of Elden Ring is one of cycles, of gods, lords, power, and rejection. It's not just about claiming a throne. It's about choosing which legacy to carry forward, the wild freedom of the Crucible or the gilded chains of the Golden Order. Whatever path the Tarnished chooses, one thing remains clear: this world was forged in fire, ruled by forgotten gods, and shaped by the sins of those who claim to save it. And that fire still burns. The Golden Order, a new age, dawned under the guidance of the Erdtree, but it wasn't as harmonious as it first appeared. Despite the Golden Order's promises, several groups opposed its rule, each with their own reasons and methods to dismantle its foundations. 4 key factions resisted vehemently: the fire giants atop the snowy mountains, the Nox from the Eternal Cities underground, the Gloam-eyed Queen, and the Ancient Dragons. Each faction developed unique means to threaten the very structure of the Golden Order. The fire giants held the Giant's Flame, capable of burning down the Erdtree itself. Similarly, the enigmatic Gloam-eyed Queen commanded the Black Flame, a dark fire potent enough to slay gods. Her rivalry with Queen Marika stretched back even before the Golden Order's inception, due to her use of the Rune of Death, a critical rune within the Elden Ring, from which she forged her fearsome flame. She cultivated an army known as the Godskins, warriors raised from infancy wrapped in gruesome clothing crafted from stitched-together skin. The Gloam-eyed Queen's significance was profound. She was an Empyrean, chosen by the Two Fingers, and thus held the potential to ascend to godhood herself and reshape the lands between, had she triumphed. Unlike the giants and the Gloam-eyed Queen, the Nox of the Eternal Cities wielded neither flame nor army, but instead possessed the Finger Slayer Blade, an artifact feared for its ability to slay the Greater Will's agents, particularly the Two Fingers. This blade, disturbingly fashioned from the bones of an unknown corpse, signaled their serious intent. Additionally, their mirrored helms shielded them from the Greater Will's divine interventions. These threats prompted swift and merciless retaliation. Marika, together with Elden Lord Godfrey and their allied forces, fire monks, criminal sorcerers employing sin magic, and trolls descended from the giants, attacked the fire giants with brutal efficiency. The giants were obliterated save one survivor, condemned by Marika to eternally guard the unextinguishable giant's flame, watched over by the fire monks who, ironically, would later forsake the Erdtree to worship the very flame they guarded. The fell god of the giants was not destroyed, merely contained, hinting that the giant's threat still lingered subtly beneath the surface. the gloam-eyed queen met defeat at the hands of Marika's shadow, Malekith, who seized the Rune of Death to prevent its misuse, marking the true establishment of the Golden Order. The Godskins, stripped of their queen's leadership, dispersed across the lands between, individually hunting Demigods and Malekith, each driven by fractured ambitions. The Nox, punished severely, were banished beneath the earth to live beneath a false, artificial night sky. Their original night, symbolized by the mysterious black moon, vanished, leaving only vague remnants hinted at by magical fragments like the memory stones. In isolation, the Nox desperately sought a new Lord of Night, creating numerous artificial beings, humanoids, trolls, and even the strange, pale Albinorics, in their quest to reclaim their lost power. Their attempts to recreate dragons, resulting in the weaker dragonkin, underscore their inability to match their former glory, trapping their ambitions in stasis. The ancient dragons took a different approach, openly assaulting Lendel, the royal capital, led by the dragon Gransax, whose massive corpse still pierces the city's walls. Their bold strike initiated a fierce war. This conflict led Lendel's elite knights, the Tree Sentinels, to adopt lightning magic, a potent force against dragonkind. Curiously, this war ended more peacefully than expected. Godwyn, son of Marika, befriended Fortisax, a mighty ancient dragon, while Fortisax's sister, Lansix, even abandoned her dragon form for human shape, eventually spreading the teachings of the ancient dragon cult. A faith embraced by the Golden Order itself, due to lightning's golden hue reflecting that of the Erdtree. Finally, hidden deep underground, a fifth faction quietly existed, the Ancestral Followers. Neutral during the turmoil, these tribes revered the Crucible and ancestral spirits, long-dead beasts whose horns continued to grow, embodying a profound cycle of rebirth. Though they remained mostly secluded, their unique beliefs hint at deeper mysteries beneath the surface of the lands between, suggesting that life and death are eternally intertwined, shaping existence beyond the simple conflicts of gods and mortals. Just as life emerges from death, the Ancestral Followers' garments symbolize rebirth, awaiting new buds sprouting from their own flesh. This cycle of renewal connects not only the ancestral spirits, but also the followers themselves. Interestingly, these spirits seem to exist independently from the Erdtree's influence, explaining why the ancestral followers avoided warfare, living peacefully during conflicts among the other factions. Amid these turbulent times, Marika bore children known as the Demigods. Before her war with the giants, she encountered a fierce and brutish warrior named Hora Lox, who later became her consort. He took the new name Godfrey and bound a beast named Sirosh to himself, using it to control his bloodlust. Together, Marika and Godfrey had 3 children, Godwyn the Golden, Morgott, and Mohg. Morgott and Mohg, twins born with the Omen curse, suffered imprisonment beneath Lendel's sewers, though their royal lineage somewhat lessened their punishment. Around this period, the Lernian Wars erupted between Lendel, led by Radahn, and Raya Lucaria Academy, led by Rennala. Neither side gained the upper hand, so they brokered peace through the marriage of their leaders. Radahn and Rennala had 3 children, Ranni, Rykard, and Radahn. Unexpectedly, Godfrey lost the grace of gold, signified by the fading glow in his eyes. Those who lose this grace, known as tarnished, are exiled from the lands between, forced to journey across a foggy expanse. Players themselves embody tarnished, free to craft their own backstories within Elden Ring's role-playing framework. Strangely, around the same time, Radahn left Rennala to marry Marika, with whom he had twin children, Miquella and Malenia. Both twins were similarly cursed, Miquella, perpetual childhood, and Malenia with the devastating scarlet rot, eventually costing her eyes and limbs. A perplexing revelation emerges from this union. Radahn and Marika might not have been separate beings at all. A statue in Lendel depicts Radahn, yet casting the spell, Law of Regression, upon it transforms it into Marika, changing the inscription to Radahn is Marika. This enigmatic duality is hinted at from the game's opening cinematic, where a figure hammering at an anvil shifts between feminine and masculine forms, suggesting two entities occupying one body. The precise nature of their union remains a mystery. Were Marika and Radahn initially one being who separated and later reunited, or two distinct entities who merged upon marriage? A popular theory suggests that Radahn was once a part of Marika, separated and later reunited, but this remains speculative. Despite Radahn and Rennala lacking divine status, their offspring were elevated to demigods through Marika's grace after her union with Radahn. Notably, certain children, Miquella Malenia and Rane, were designated as Empyreans, special beings chosen by the two fingers to potentially succeed Marika. While the selection criteria for Empyreans remain ambiguous, Malenia's remembrance suggests that being born from a single god guarantees Empyrean status. However, Rane's status complicates this, as she was born from two mortal parents. A plausible interpretation is that children of a single god automatically attain Empyrean status, but others can be specially chosen as well. Ultimately, this layered history of lineage and divinity highlights the intricate and mysterious fabric of Elden Ring's world. 3 individuals held the potential to ascend into godhood. Crucially, Marika also removed the Rune of Death from the Elden Ring, an event that, according to Miyazaki, Elden Ring's director, bestowed immortality upon the demigods. This significant act also profoundly affected ordinary citizens in the lands between. Catacombs formed by the Erdtree's roots emerged specifically for Erdtree burials, a ritual whose exact nature remains somewhat mysterious. There is a prevalent theory that death lost much of its meaning in the lands between, especially since the inhabitants frequently resemble undead or zombie-like beings. Yet, it's possible that Erdtree burials were reserved as an honor for the holiest and most respected individuals, explaining why numerous graves and coffins still litter the land. Perhaps it wasn't an automatic right, but rather a revered privilege to have one's body integrated into the Erdtree, fueling its radiant glow eternally. Nevertheless, complications arose from this newfound immortality. Some souls refused the Erdtree's call, lingering instead as undead entities known as those who live in death, something I'll address further later on. Ultimately, Marika's removal of the Rune of Death would have permanently secured her lineage's dominance if not for the crucial event known as the Night of the Black Knives. The Night of the Black Knives stands as the single most pivotal moment in Elden Ring's history, igniting chaos and reshaping the fate of the lands between. On this infamous night, a fragment of the Rune of Death was stolen by a mysterious group known as the Black Knife Assassins. These assassins possessed an intriguing heritage. Their armor descriptions identify them as Newmen, Marika's own kind. An NPC Roger mentions their ties to the Eternal Cities. Such details suggest a mysterious connection linking Marika, the Black Knife Assassins, the Eternal Cities, and possibly the Nox themselves. The precise nature of these connections remains ambiguous. While DLC content has clarified aspects of Marika's origins, it stops short of confirming whether Marika directly hailed from the Nox or the Eternal Cities. However, it's plausible the Newmen and the Nox share ancestral ties. Celia, a town in Caelid inhabited by Cillians, is stated by NPC Gowry to descend from the Eternal Cities. Moreover, 2 Nox warriors appear above ground uniquely at Celia. The Night Folk, known for their distinctive gray skin and silver blood, are almost certainly related to the Nox. Additionally, the Nox's battle ants carry Newman runes, further hinting at shared lineage or historical interaction. Returning to the pivotal night, the assassins imbued their weapons with the stolen Rune of Death fragment, making them capable of slaying demigods. Godwyn the Golden was the first victim, murdered simultaneously as another demigod, Rane, ended her own physical life. However, this simultaneous event created an unforeseen complication, causing their souls and bodies to diverge instead of disappearing entirely. Godwyn retained his body but lost his soul, mutating grotesquely beneath Stormvale Castle in the deep root depths. Conversely, Rane preserved her soul but lost her body, now existing within a blue doll. These two demigods are the only explicitly confirmed casualties of the Night of the Black Knives, though it's plausible others fell as well. Walking mausoleums scattered throughout the lands between are said to house remains of Marika's forgotten children, though whether they perished on that night or later is unclear. Devastated by the loss of her child, Marika shattered the Elden Ring, a fundamental artifact upholding the laws of the world. Predictably, this act plunged the lands between into chaos. Marika vanished, and the remaining demigods seized individual fragments of power, igniting a brutal and sprawling war. This catastrophic series of events ultimately set the stage for our arrival, and the game's unfolding adventure. Shardbearer intro, that overview might have stretched longer than planned, but I wanted to vividly capture Elden Ring's extensive lore. Compared to earlier Souls games, Elden Ring is far grander, packed with richer storytelling and expansive histories. While it retains familiar Soulsborne elements like ancient dragons, Elden Ring magnifies these themes on an unprecedented scale. A larger map doesn't merely offer more exploration, it brings numerous items, foes, and compelling bosses, each contributing layers of depth to the intricate story. This vastness is especially visible in the breathtaking yet devastated landscapes. Elden Ring's beauty emerges from its ruin. The lands between bear the scars of catastrophic warfare, filled with haunting echoes of past conflicts and signs of ongoing battles. From Gransax's immense corpse-piercing Lendel's walls, to Castle Morn's overrun defenses besieged by Misbegotten, to the eerie flames that flicker atop the mountaintops once home to giants, the world vividly showcases its turbulent past. Yet, even after the Shattering, new conflicts relentlessly surface. Corpses dangle ominously around Limgrave, the scarlet rot relentlessly devours Caelid, and shadowy figures prowl under the cover of darkness. The lands between is a realm continually molded by both past devastation and present turmoil. This constant tension sets the stage for what comes next. Each demigod remains alive, each driven by their ambitions, agendas, and personal struggles. Often, these demigods themselves are the primary catalysts for their region's current hardships. Consequently, just like the Elden Ring itself, the lands between is fractured into distinct territories, each with unique dilemmas and narratives. Let's begin by exploring two of these regions, Limgrave and the Weeping Peninsula. Godric Limgrave serves primarily as the foundational region in Elden Ring's broader narrative. Unlike other territories, each marked distinctly by singular, intense predicaments, Limgrave captures a mixture of everything. Castle Morn, for instance, vividly depicts the ease with which the Misbegotten rose up, overthrowing humanity's fragile rule. The region also hosts peculiar areas like the Madness Village and the enigmatic minor Erdtree, making Limgrave and its southern counterpart, the Weeping Peninsula, among the most mechanically comprehensive and satisfying areas. Packed with evergalls, catacombs, hidden treasures, and intriguing merchants, these zones effectively condense Elden Ring's diverse gameplay into a rich, accessible introduction. Narratively, however, Limgrave initially seems sparse, until you reach its core legacy dungeon in the northwest, Stormvale Castle. Here, the recently crowned Lord Godric the Grafted resides. Despite his lofty title and distant ties to Marika and Godfrey's golden lineage, Godric is merely a distant relative, lacking the prestigious direct ancestry held by figures like Godwyn the Golden or Godfrey himself, famed conqueror of giants and Elden Lord. Rather than living up to his ancestors' legendary status, Godric embodies the lineage's downfall, a coward, hiding and scheming to ensure his own survival. Indeed, Godric's reputation is particularly tarnished. He initially fled Lendel disguised among women, avoiding conflict and responsibility, then later hid in Stormvale, shying away from direct confrontation with General Radahn. He further disgraced himself by challenging Malenia to battle, only to beg for mercy after his swift defeat, an act marking him as both foolish and spendless. Yet Godric, while weak physically, was shrewd enough to understand his limitations. He turned to a grotesque practice known as grafting, fusing human limbs, and even the head of a dragon, to his own body, attempting to bolster his power through sheer biological modification. Although grafting generally describes processes like transferring skin to heal wounds or fusing plants to create stronger hybrids, Godric's twisted version involved forcibly merging body parts from fallen Tarnished. His practice intensified dramatically with the mass influx of Tarnished warriors from beyond the fog, transforming Stormvale into an industrial-scale grafting nightmare. The castle itself paints a grim portrait. Corpses piled high represent discarded parts or bodies awaiting grotesque experimentation. Godric's macabre creations, such as the grafted scions, fleshy amalgamations sporting mismatched limbs and bird feathers, patrol its ruined halls, embodying his monstrous ambition. A revealing detail lies in Stormvale's defenders. Most soldiers found within its walls are exiles or banished knights, stripped of their original loyalties and lands following past conflicts. Unlike knights from established factions such as Redmane or Raya Lucaria, who proudly display allegiance to their respective regions, Godric's knights simply bear his own name, signifying their loyalty to him alone rather than a storied lineage or cause. Their presence emphasizes Stormvale's dramatic fall from grace and Godric's own status as a misfit lord, attracting fellow outcasts and undesirables. Perhaps, optimistically, Godric recognized his own plight in theirs and offered refuge, though cynically it might simply reflect that they had no other place to turn. Ultimately, Stormvale Castle and Godric himself stand as poignant symbols of decline. They encapsulate the tragic end of the once proud golden lineage, leaving one to wonder what Godfrey, the original Elden Lord, would think if he could witness the ruin of his legacy firsthand. Rennala, unlike other regions marked by the ashes of long, ended battles, Lernia remains caught in the throes of active conflict upon our arrival. Here, two factions vie for dominance, the Carian royal family and the Academy of Raya Lucaria. Initially, these groups were unified under the renowned Rennala, Queen of the Full Moon, whose mastery of sorcery earned her respect as one of the Academy's greatest scholars. Magic in Elden Ring is complex, divided mainly into incantations, rooted in faith and ritual, practiced by religious sects like Golden Order fundamentalists or the Ancient Dragon Cult, and sorcery, which follows a more scientific approach. Sorcery traces back to astrologers who, gazing upon the stars, discovered something called the primeval current. This event led to glintstone, a mysterious mineral raining from the heavens, sparking widespread study. In Elden Ring, stars are far more than distant lights. They control fate itself. Items like amber starlight confirm this, explaining how stars dictate destinies, even those of gods. Stars themselves are alive, spawning beings such as falling star beasts and astels, which crash down into the lands between. With glintstone's seemingly limitless potential, the Academy of Raya Lucaria was established to oversee and encourage sorceress research. Scholars experimented freely, with each student crowned according to their chosen discipline, be it the study of comets, meteors, or other mystical pursuits. Even specialized roles, like traveling scholars or those focused on conflict resolution, were distinguished by unique crowns. Yet, not all research was welcomed. Scholars fascinated by the primeval current, like Lusat and Azur, paid a dire price. Attempting to directly commune with this cosmic force resulted in catastrophic transformations. Their heads melded with large crystals, forever scarred by glimpses into an abyss they couldn't comprehend. The sorceress Selen's tragic fate, becoming a mass of graven mages, highlights the dangers inherent in pursuing this forbidden knowledge. Clearly, the Academy encouraged exploration but drew the line at the primeval current. This stance contrasted with the Carian family, who favored tradition, nobility, and their lunar-focused sorcery. While Academy scholars gazed at stars, Carian royals revered the moon. Initially, the shared passion for magic united these two factions, until the Shattering occurred. At first, the Academy sealed itself off, refusing involvement in the wider conflict. Remarkably, this neutrality was respected, at least temporarily. However, the truce eventually fractured. The Academy betrayed the Carian family, launching an attack and imprisoning Rennala, within the Academy's Grand Library. Overwhelmed by heartbreak following Radahn's departure, Rennala offered little resistance. Yet the Carrion family wasn't defenseless, swiftly retaliating by crafting specialized spells such as Carrion Retaliation to deflect and counter the Academy's assaults. As stated in the lore, it was then that the moon and the stars went their separate ways. Liurnia today is littered with evidence of their ongoing war. Soldiers from both factions still battle fiercely across roads and encampments. The Academy fights primarily from a distance, while the Carrion warriors prefer direct combat, wielding spells like Slicer, Piercer, and Greatsword to devastating effect. The Carrions bolster their ranks by puppeteering captured knights, while Academy scholars and soldiers rely on marionettes, dull like warriors that loyally defend their masters. Interestingly, some Academy scholars, distinguished by the lazuli glintstone crown, which represents belief in the equality of moon and stars, seemingly aligned with Caria, defending the manor against their own colleagues. Despite its isolation, the Academy remains formidable, sealed off by glintstone keys and illusions. Only a few structures survive the widespread devastation, notably Carrion Manor, the Carrion Study Hall, and the Academy itself. Rennala's story is particularly poignant. Locked away in the Grand Library, she remains profoundly heartbroken, clutching an amber egg bestowed by Radahn. Left alone after her husband abandoned her and the Academy-turned-hostile Rennala now attempts to ease her sorrow by birthing new creations from her egg, perhaps seeking to recapture the joy and love she once knew as a mother. In a strikingly sad detail, a statue of Radahn stands silently behind her, while his red wolf continues to guard the Academy's halls. During the second phase of her boss fight, Rennala conjures an illusion of her former self, a proud queen at the height of her power. Yet, once defeated, we realize she's unharmed, a mercy I'm thankful the developers chose. Like Priscilla from Dark Souls, Rennala hasn't truly harmed us. She's simply a grieving mother, trapped by lingering pain. She lost her husband, remains distant from her children, and retains a now empty title, unable even to practice the magic that once defined her. I hope one day Rennala realizes she no longer needs Radahn, that she can reclaim her strength, uniting moon and stars once more, mending not only Liurnia but also her own wounded heart. If any place in the lands between deserves reconciliation and healing, it's certainly here. Radahn, Caelid remains visibly wounded from the Shattering. It's impossible to explore this region without encountering the aftermath of the devastating battle that once took place here. Scarlet rot has utterly infested the land, a direct consequence of the brutal confrontation between General Radahn and Malenia, famously depicted in one of Elden Ring's early trailers. Their duel reached a desperate stalemate, culminating with Malenia unleashing a cataclysmic bloom of scarlet rot, the Aeonian flower, which engulfed Caelid in corruption. This act forever reshaped Caelid into a nightmarish wasteland. Every corner of the region, from towering cliffs to cavernous depths, is coated in a sickly fungus, leeching life from all flora. Wildlife is similarly twisted, with beasts like dogs and giant crows grotesquely enlarged and corrupted by decay. The central swamp is particularly toxic, filled with bubbling pools of rot that contaminate everything around them. Even the town of Celia suffers profoundly. Its residents, descendants of the enigmatic Nox, now use magical barriers to hide from the chaos outside. Interestingly, the only 2 Nox warriors found above ground are imprisoned behind these barriers, raising the possibility that the townspeople erected these defenses specifically to protect them. Yet, despite Caelid's devastation, Radahn suffered most. Being at the epicenter of Malenia's rot explosion left him severely mutilated, his once powerful body deteriorating even as his great rune desperately tries to halt the rot's relentless advance. There's an unsettling yet striking beauty in Caelid's ruin, showcasing Elden Ring's unmatched environmental design. Each region offers exceptional artistry, but Caelid's hostile, otherworldly aura uniquely stands out. It feels as if you've stepped into the aftermath of a nuclear disaster, leaving you wondering what this place once was. This unsettling mystery raises further questions. How much of Caelid existed before the rot overtook it? Did the rot merely infest existing swamps and marshes, or did it create these toxic biomes itself? The implications are chilling. Due to its hazardous nature, Caelid has effectively been quarantined, with a massive barrier blocking access to prevent escape and further contamination. In response, General Radahn's elite soldiers from Redmane Castle lead cleanup efforts throughout the region. Rather than actively waging war, these soldiers primarily focus on controlling the wildlife, purging the rot, and attempting containment. Flame-based strategies dominate their attempts, suggesting fire as the primary method to cleanse scarlet rot. Flame chariots and flame spells, such as Flame, Grant Me Strength, underscore this approach. Despite their best efforts, remnants of Malenia's forces, Cleanrot Knights, still patrol the swamp and clash regularly with Redmane's forces. Scarlet rot has also spawned new creatures entirely. Mushroom men roam the land, their bodies overtaken by fungal growths resembling priestly robes, which ancient texts describe as vestments, hinting at religious significance. Historically, powerful lords once revered the scarlet rot, wearing fungal crowns as symbols of devotion. Even stranger are the kindred of rot, humanoid insects born directly from the rot, worshipping Malenia, the rot goddess. Yet, despite their devotion, Malenia has seemingly abandoned them, a topic I'll explore further when we examine her story. The soldiers of Caelid face overwhelming odds, yet their dedication remains unwavering. As their armor's description poignantly states, they brand their crests to demonstrate commitment, fully aware they'll likely perish among the fungus and disease spreading through every corner. Their loyalty to General Radahn and their homeland is fierce. They refuse to allow their leader's suffering and sacrifice to have been in vain, wanting their beloved General Radahn to meet a fitting warrior's end. The soldiers of Redmane Castle host a festival, calling warriors from across the lands between to challenge one of the Shattering's greatest heroes. Radahn's encounter is, in my view, among the best fights Elden Ring has to offer, both narratively and mechanically. It's a true spectacle, enhanced by the unique opportunity to summon multiple legendary warriors who fight by your side. This mechanic brilliantly illustrates Radahn's legendary strength. Despite numerous buffs and nerfs throughout updates, Radahn remains a formidable challenge. Radahn himself is unforgettable, battling relentlessly while riding his absurdly small horse, casting powerful gravity spells, and even launching himself like a meteor across the battlefield. Perhaps the most charming detail in his lore is how the gigantic Radahn manages to ride this tiny steed. It's explicitly noted in his item descriptions that Radahn deeply loves his horse. As he grew older and heavier, he learned gravity magic specifically to lessen his own weight. Radahn's most astonishing feat, halting the very movement of the stars, was likely performed at the behest of his teacher in the town of Celia, where he mastered his magic. As we previously discussed, stars in Elden Ring are living entities, harboring devastating potential. Falling star beasts, fought within meteor-created craters, hint at the destructive power of celestial entities. Astel, the natural born of the void, famously obliterated an eternal city, stealing its sky. Among the eternal cities of the Nox, Nokron and Nokstella, the mysterious third city beneath the Deeproot depths notably lacks its own sky, implying Astel's devastating arrival there. The Star Scourge heirloom further emphasizes Radahn's incredible strength, stating that he alone confronted and subdued the stars, effectively holding them in place through sheer presence and power. Radahn's situation parallels other legendary tales, reminiscent of SAO's Aincrad, where Heathcliff's presence halted progress entirely. Radahn's existence similarly prevented celestial forces from wreaking havoc on the world, holding back cosmic threats through willpower alone. Elden Ring's masterful storytelling is highlighted perfectly here. Despite scarlet rot consuming Radahn's mind and body, he remains powerful enough to restrain celestial beings and wield gravity magic even in his deteriorating state, clearly earning his reputation as the most fearsome warrior born of the Shattering. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, stands out prominently due to his active rebellion against the Golden Order. Unlike his counterparts, who largely tolerate, or at least accept, the established order, Rykard harbors deep contempt toward the Greater Will, the Erdtree, and everything associated with their authority. Infuriated by the gods' passive observation of the Shattering, content to watch demigods wage endless war, Rykard took matters into his own hands, openly declaring war on the Golden Order itself. His rebellion began with a ruthless assault against the forces of Lendel, a conflict that remains unresolved to this day. Curiously, Mount Gelmir's own troops, such as Gelmir knights or soldiers loyal directly to Rykard, are notably absent from the front lines. Instead, Lendel's soldiers face relentless attacks by grotesque constructs known as abductor virgins, terrifying automatons resembling Iron Maidens, mercilessly capturing or killing any who approach. While these creatures aren't unique to Rykard's domain, as they're also seen within Raya Lucaria, he utilizes them extensively. This obsession with capture and torment hints at Rykard's sinister inclinations. Within Volcano Manor resides Inquisitor Giza, who wields a spiked wheel similar to those found on the abductor virgins. Giza's executioner garb, combined with the Manor's numerous torture chambers and cages, indicates that Rykard's interests went beyond mere warfare, encompassing interrogation, torture, and possibly even twisted amusement. His intent wasn't merely victory but terror. Gruesome effigies lining the roads serve as brutal warnings to intruders, and the relentless cruelty of his forces sends a clear message. Defeat alone is insufficient. Rykard desires suffering, yet despite this brutality, no clear victor emerges. As Rykard withdraws into isolation, Lendel's troops continue suffering the unending horrors of a conflict without resolution. Desperate for absolute power, Rykard ultimately made a fateful decision. He journeyed deep into Mount Gelmir, where he encountered and fed himself, along with his great Rune, to a colossal serpent residing there. Previously, this serpent was venerated, as evidenced by serpent statues adorning Volcano Manor. However, not everyone revered it. Weapons like the serpent hunter, used to slay a similar immortal serpent in ancient times, suggest historic opposition. Rykard's fusion with this creature post, Shattering, granted him immense power, but also insatiable hunger and madness. Once ruthless yet human, Rykard now became a monstrous abomination, his cruelty multiplied. His domain reflects this horrifying transformation. Thousands of corpses lie burned, hung, or piled grotesquely. One ghost hauntingly summarizes this tragedy, lamenting that if this field of death represents Rykard's work, he has utterly abandoned humanity. Realizing their lord's descent into madness, many followers abandoned Rykard, except Tanith, his loyal proprietress. Far from repulsed, Tanith grew only more infatuated after his monstrous transformation, embodying the extreme notion of unwavering devotion. Left with dwindling numbers, Rykard opened Volcano Manor to those who shared his disdain for the Golden Order, gathering various rebels and outcasts eager to defy the Erdtree. However, these new allies remain unaware of Rykard's true intentions or the horrific reality hidden within the manor. Among these residents is Raya, Tanith's daughter. Although seemingly innocent compared to seasoned warriors like Bernal, Raya, too, remains oblivious, not only to the manor's dark secrets, but also to the troubling mysteries surrounding her own origins. During your time at Volcano Manor, Raya begins to question her own existence. In a quiet moment, she mentions hearing strange noises behind the walls, unsettling hints of something hidden. Investigating this further reveals a concealed passage leading to the manor's horrific secret, the true face of Rykard's gluttony and depravity. Beneath the manor lie the ruins of old settlements, now overrun with monstrous man-serpents. These creatures were not born, but created, products of dark rituals performed after Rykard merged with the Great Serpent. One of them, as it turns out, is Raya herself. Her true name is Zoraias, and she accidentally reveals her serpentine form during the quest line. Confronting Tanith confirms what we suspected. Raya is not her biological daughter, but an adopted creation. The woman who likely gave birth to her is Dadakar, as suggested by the talisman she drops. The item's description claims Dadakar indulged in every imaginable pleasure and sin, giving birth to numerous twisted offspring. Alongside the man-serpents, the underground chambers also house abductors, albinurics, a godskin apostle, a black flame monk, and even an omen killer. The presence of first-generation albinurics bound in torture devices, limbless, broken, and strung up, suggests they were used for experimentation or torment. Only one second-generation albinuric is found nearby, its head lootable near a guillotine. While not all these enemies have specific lore reasons to be here, their placement fits thematically. Rykard is the enemy of the Golden Order, and many of these figures represent factions or individuals cast aside by its rule. The Godskin and Omen Killer likely allied with Rykard by choice, as many of their kind now wander the lands between following their own agendas. In fact, Gideon once hired an Omen Killer to search for the Erdtree medallion in an albinuric village. Odd, given that no omens live there, showing that these killers often serve whoever pays or enables their cause. Importantly, this grotesque underworld is hidden from the manor's recruits. It's likely that Rykard and Tanith kept it secret to avoid mass desertion. After all, joining Volcano Manor isn't a lifetime vow, it's a contract. Warriors who swear loyalty to Rykard become recusants, a title we can earn as well by joining their cause. As Tarnished, we're tasked with hunting our own, those who remain faithful to the Golden Order. Doing so earns favor with Tanith and eventually grants an audience with Rykard. But this invitation is a trap. The manor is littered with corpses, champions, tarnished, and other recusants, lured in and consumed, their power absorbed by Rykard. He's not recruiting allies, he's feeding his hunger. His desire for power is insatiable, and he believes that devouring the strength of warriors will only elevate him further. What seems like a gameplay limitation, the manor having only a few members, is actually a chilling narrative truth. Many came, filled with righteous fury against the Erdtree. Few ever left. One of the most striking elements of this reveal is that, depending on how you play the game, you might miss it entirely. Most players likely take the portal straight to the boss fight behind the manor, but if you continue the questline, defeating Morgott and progressing to the mountaintops, you can challenge Juno Hoslow and complete the path intended for recusants. It's rare, but it leads to a startling realization. You've walked into the jaws of a monster who devours his own. And for those who follow that path, the twist is even darker. Some players may have killed Rykard without ever discovering the dungeon beneath the manor. The twisted ritual chambers, the true nature of Raya, or the scale of Rykard's betrayal. After Rykard's death, the story doesn't end. Tanith, ever loyal, enters the boss arena and begins consuming his remains. Her hope is clear that through her, Rykard may live again. Just as the serpent once consumed Rykard and kept his will alive, she now eats the fused monstrosity, believing he can be reborn within her. We never see the result, but the implication is chilling. Tanith's devotion is absolute. She fell for him long ago and never once turned away. If it takes becoming a vessel for his resurrection, she'll do it. Whatever it takes to carry his vision forward, even if it means devouring the gods together as a family. With Rykard's fall, the first arc of Shardbearers nears its close. These 4 bosses form the initial ring of demigod rulers, and to unlock the path forward, 2 of their great runes must be claimed. To reach the Altus Plateau and the royal capital of Lendel, you pass through a landscape already hinting that something is deeply wrong. The first signs are subtle. Perfumers roam the city, wearing ornate armor described as the garb of respected and blessed apothecaries. These figures were likely tasked with tending to the sick and dying, suggesting that something toxic or contagious may have gripped the city. Yet scattered across Lendel are buildings sealed shut with a strange, sticky orange substance. It bears a disturbing resemblance to the corpse wax used by the valiant gargoyles. Material harvested from the remains of long-dead champions, as described in their weapon lore. If this is indeed corpse wax, and it's being used to seal buildings, it raises unsettling questions. Were people locked inside during some form of plague or rot outbreak? Were they already dead? Or was this an attempt at cruel quarantine? Whether due to war or disease, the implications are horrifying, trapping citizens in their homes for what might be years, or even decades, is far from a humane solution, and yet there is no clear answer. The silence is telling. Beneath Leyndell's golden grandeur lies an entirely different world. The decrepit sewers, home to the Omen. These twisted, horned beings were not simply banished. They were buried, imprisoned beneath the capital, out of sight and forgotten. This theme of literal social stratification is a recurring one in From Software's games. In Dark Souls, the depths lie under the undead Burg, and beneath that, Blighttown, each layer representing a deeper level of societal neglect. In Demon's Souls, World 5, the Valley of Defilement serves a similar purpose, a cesspool where the unwanted are sent to rot. From Software doesn't need to explain these divisions with long dialogue or lore dumps. Instead, they show it through physical design, vertical separation, locked doors, and miles of distance. The lower you go, the more cursed and forsaken the world becomes, and Leyndell follows this formula perfectly. The Omen in the capital weren't exiled. They were entombed, kept beneath the city like filth beneath a gilded floor. Still, even after the Shattering, they remain imprisoned, denied even a glimpse of the sky, all except one. That one is Morgott. Unlike other Omen, Morgott not only escaped but ascended, becoming Lord of Leyndell itself. You meet him several times before his true reveal. First is Margit, the Fell Omen, one of the earliest major bosses in the game. Then again in Altus Plateau, where he ambushes you. Finally, he returns under his true name Morgott, the Omen King. What sets Morgott apart isn't just his power. It's the mystery of how an Omen, a being shunned and buried beneath society, became the ruler of its shining capital. The contradiction is glaring. Leyndell still houses imprisoned Omen mere steps beneath the royal seat, yet Morgott sits on the throne above them. How? Why? No one truly knows. And perhaps in a world as broken and tragic as the lands between, the truth doesn't matter as much as what Morgott became. A self-loathing king who upheld the very order that despised him. A king who fought to preserve the Erdtree's vision, even if it meant denying his own nature. Morgott is a rare figure among the Demigods, royalty who remains fiercely loyal to the Golden Order, even as that very system rejects and despises him. To the world, he appeared first as Margit, the Fell Omen, a false persona adopted to hide his true identity. Even after the Shattering, Omens were still reviled, seen as cursed beings unworthy of status or visibility. Morgott knew this. To act openly, he had to mask himself, to become something palatable to the public eye. Behind the scenes, Morgott operated with quiet intensity. He commanded the Knights Cavalry, a deadly order of mounted knights who patrolled the lands between under cover of darkness. His presence was always felt, even when unrecognized. And yet, for all the concealment and shame, Morgott's devotion to the Golden Order is unmatched. Even more so than his siblings. While others chased power or forged new paths, Morgott clung to the Order like a man desperate to prove his worth. He viewed his Omen blood not just as a flaw, but as a curse. His weapon, the cursed sword, is forged from that very blood, symbol of the self-loathing he carried deep within. He kept his nature hidden, even from himself, fearing what it meant. During battle, Morgott's pain is made clear. In his second phase, he erupts in fury, not only at us for challenging him, but at himself. He curses his blood for defiling the sacred Elden throne. He spits venom at his siblings, calling them traitors for abandoning the Golden Order. He sees himself as impure, unworthy, a monster defending a world that never made room for him. Even his title, Lord of Leyndell, is hollow. No one knows who he truly is. No one acknowledges his rule. And yet, he fights for the Golden Order as if it were his own child. The very people who imprisoned his kind in the sewers, beneath the capital's polished streets, are the ones he protects. An Omen killer stands vigil at the sewer's entrance, ready to eliminate any who might escape. Morgott doesn't question it. He maintains the chains that once bound him. When we finally defeat Morgott and climb the steps toward the Erdtree, we learn the ultimate tragedy. Neither he nor we can enter. He, too, sought the Elden Throne, but was rejected, cast aside by the very force he devoted his life to. And still, he remains loyal. Morgott's tragedy is clear. He loves something that cannot love him back. The Golden Order, founded by his mother, is the same system that deemed him a curse and cast him into darkness. But to Morgott, it's all he has. Born into a confined, punishing world, the Order was perhaps the only structure that gave his suffering any meaning. As a child, punished for something he couldn't understand, his horns, his birthright, he must have asked why. Why me? But there was no answer, and when none came, Morgott blamed himself. He built a life around the lie that he was the problem, that his pain was deserved, that if he just served the Order well enough, maybe it would accept him. This mindset stands in stark contrast to that of his twin brother, Mohg, a demigod who did not bow, who embraced the darkness and sought power outside the Order. Where Morgott saw shame, Mohg saw potential. Where Morgott tried to conform, Mohg rebelled. One twin tried to serve the world that hated him. The other chose to rule it instead. Mohg, like his brother Morgott, is a child of the Omen, a cursed lineage marked by grotesque horns and exile to the depths beneath the lands between. But unlike Morgott, who clung to the ideals of the Golden Order while suppressing his Omen heritage, Mohg embraced his tainted blood. He didn't see it as a curse, he saw it as power. Driven by this conviction, Mohg dreamt of establishing his own line of rule of the Mohgwyn dynasty. But, like his brother, he too was shackled deep beneath the subterranean shunning grounds, confined, abandoned, and in agony. And it was there, in that suffering, that he heard her. The formless mother, an outer god, reached out to him. Let's quickly define some key terms for clarity. Demigods, offspring of known divine figures like Queen Marika and Radahn. Among them are Empyreans, individuals chosen by the two fingers who have the potential to ascend to godhood. This includes Miquella, Malenia, and Rane, while above them is the rank of god exemplified by Marika, an Empyrean who fully ascended. Finally, we have the outer gods. Despite sounding mightier, outer gods are not omnipotent. In fact, their greatest limitation is that they cannot manifest directly within the lands between. Like Lovecraftian deities, they are cosmic entities, vast, unknowable, and dwelling far beyond mortal reach. They require vessels or envoys to exert influence. That's where Mohg comes in. The formless mother can only act through him. Her power flows through blood, and in their grotesque communion, blood becomes divine. In battle, we see Mohg channel her essence by jabbing or gripping his ominous spear. Each time, blood bursts forth, not from the spear itself, but as if from a wound shared between god and follower. The connection demands suffering, pain, and offering. But what does the formless mother want? That's hard to say. She has no body, no face, no words, only instincts, represented in symbols and blood. Her presence is steeped in maternal imagery, childbirth, menstruation, the womb. She's called Mother, after all, not queen, not goddess, but mother. It's a deliberate choice. Blood is her element. And with that comes a deeply feminine symbolism. Think about menstruation, a monthly bleeding often referred to, even in our world, as the curse. The connection between cursed blood and divine communion starts to make sense. The altar where Mohg performs his rites is shaped like a pelvis, the cocoon that holds Miquella like an egg, and Mohg's own title of Lord of Blood. All seem to imply some form of ritual rebirth. And who does the formless mother reach out to? Only the rejected, the broken, the cursed. Mohg, the blood fiends we see in the DLC, those cast aside by society. She gives them something no one else does, love. Twisted, perhaps, but love nonetheless. The kind only a mother could give, or perhaps it's all just symbolism. Blood as a conduit of divine will, pain as communion, and menstruation as sacred suffering. Regardless, the message is clear: the formless mother is a god of cursed love and crimson rebirth. Now, remember what we said earlier about Empyreans. This ties into Mohg's ultimate plan. He knew he couldn't become a god himself. He wasn't chosen by the two fingers, but Miquella was. So Mohg stole him, ripped him from his Erdtree, and sealed him in a blood cocoon, not to kill him, but to crown him. Mohg's dream wasn't to rule alone. It was to reign as consort beside a slumbering god. While Ranni communes with the dark moon, and Malenia rots in the swamp under the scarlet outer god, Miquella was the only Empyrean left unclaimed. Mohg would build his dynasty around him. A dynasty of blood, a dynasty of love, a dynasty born of the curse. Now, the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC recontextualizes much of this, so we'll revisit it in detail later. But at its core, Mohg's goal is simple: to establish a new dynasty within the lands between, one not gilded in grace or gold, but drenched in blood. To realize this vision, Mohg surrounds himself with loyal and dangerous followers. Chief among them are the sanguine nobles and bloody fingers, warped devotees who spread the curse of his blood dynasty like a plague. They serve not just as soldiers, but as evangelists of blood, sowing chaos in the name of their lord. One of the most well-known members of this cult is White-Faced Var, the very first NPC players encounter in the game. Once a battlefield surgeon tasked with mercy killings, Var was kidnapped, alongside others, by Mohg. Unlike the rest, Var not only survived but adapted, becoming a chosen vessel for Mohg's cursed blood. His twisted devotion makes him one of Mohg's most zealous servants. Mohg's stronghold, the Mohgwyn Palace, lies buried deep in the western consecrated snowfields, far from the reach of golden light. Interestingly, this location lies to the south of Miquella's Erdtree, which was believed by many Albinaurics to be their prophesied sanctuary. So how did a massive congregation of Albinaurics end up in Mohg's hellish domain instead? Well, there are two likely theories. One, they got lost, which, to be fair, is entirely plausible. The snowfields are a brutal maze too, or more compellingly, some Albinaurics may have turned away from salvation and joined Mohg as an act of vengeance against the Golden Order for their suffering. As for the palace itself, it's not clear whether Mohg inherited it, seized it, or simply stumbled into it. What is clear is that Mohgwyn Palace predates him, and its ruins whisper of an older, long-forgotten dynasty. Carvings, hieroglyphs, and statues fill the halls, most notably, recurring images of a robed elder holding a book. This same figure appears in other ancient ruins, such as those in Nokstella and the Deeproot Depths. These ruins are also home to Claymon, eldritch figures tied to bubble-based sorceries. According to item descriptions, they once served as priests of that ancient, unknown dynasty. Their presence, alongside the forgotten symbols, paints Mohgwyn Palace as a place not born of Mohg's will, but claimed and repurposed for his twisted ambitions. And it feels evil. Everyone you meet within is either corrupted, deranged, or utterly fanatical. It's a palace of madness, and while the DLC may soon show us that not all who follow Mohg are monsters, the palace itself is unquestionably a kingdom of blood, soaked delusion. Which brings us to a core truth. Mohg is one of the least influential demigods in the lands between. His realm is tiny, barely a 1-minute walk from entrance to end. His dynasty, completely dependent on a god who won't answer. Because Miquella, the true Empyrean Mohg hoped to crown, has no intention of waking up or answering Mohg's call. His cocoon remains sealed, his will silent, and without Miquella's ascent, Mohg's entire dynasty remains frozen in stasis, a kingdom of blood without a god, a dream without a heartbeat, Miquella and Malenia. This brings us to the final pair of demigods, the twins Miquella and Malenia. Like those who came before them, they sought to forge a path beyond the Golden Order. But their reasons were deeply personal. Miquella, in his early years, was a devout follower of Golden Order fundamentalism, a strict sect devoted to understanding the inner workings of the Order's laws and cosmic truths. He even created a few notable incantations during this time, including Discus of Light, Triple Rings of Light, and Radagon's Rings of Light. But Miquella eventually abandoned the Order. Why? Because despite all its teachings and divine promises, the Golden Order offered no cure for his sister's affliction, the Scarlet Rot. This departure marked the birth of unalloyed gold, a pure, untouched form of divinity. The term unalloyed refers to a metal unmixed with others, symbolizing Miquella's rejection of compromise. If the Golden Order's gold was tainted with rot, lies, and stagnation, Miquella would forge his own, pure, resilient, and incorruptible. His sister, Malenia, was a living tragedy. She had been infected with the Scarlet Rot, a divine disease inflicted by an outer god, one that had long ago been sealed beneath the Lake of Rot by a blind swordsman. Despite the seal, the god's influence clearly endured, eventually taking hold of Malenia. She would later clash with General Radahn in a legendary duel that ended not with victory, but devastation. Pushed to her limit, Malenia unleashed the rot buried inside her, triggering a toxic bloom that decimated Caelid. The land still bears the scars. Following the battle, Malenia collapsed from exhaustion and was carried back to the Erdtree by one of her loyal Cleanrot knights. The Erdtree, grown from Miquella's own blood, was meant to be his answer to the Erdtree, his vision of a pure sanctuary for the oppressed. But that dream was never fulfilled. Miquella never reached his full potential. His body remained eternally youthful, stunted by a curse of perpetual childhood, and when Mohg abducted him from the Erdtree, sealing him within a cocoon to serve his own twisted ambitions, Miquella's golden vision was left incomplete, his Erdtree a hollow monument to a fallen ideal. To even reach this sacred tree, the Tarnished must solve a puzzle hidden in the abandoned town of Ordina, locked within an Evergall. These magical prisons appear throughout the lands between, housing beings and secrets long forgotten. In this case, the Evergall serves to obscure the Erdtree's path, protecting it from unworthy eyes. Despite its incomplete state, the Erdtree became a beacon for the unwanted, a haven for those cast out by the Golden Order. Within its walls dwell demi-humans, misbegotten, and albinaurics, beings who suffered beneath the Order's dogma. The Erdtree's defenders reflect this spirit of refuge. Albinauric women, despite their physical frailty, stand guard at the gates, bows in hand. A Black Knife assassins appear as well, either protecting Miquella or perhaps seeking to end him. A two Preceptor, class sorcerers from Rea Lucaria, scholars devoted to peace, are also present, perhaps drawn by Miquella's vision. And finally, there's Loretta, once a knight of Caria, who abandoned her homeland after witnessing the cruelty inflicted upon the Albinaurics. She chose to serve the Erdtree, believing it could offer them peace. Some speculate that Loretta herself may have been an Albinauric. It's a rumor supported more by symbolism than fact, but it lingers, especially given how deeply she cares for their people. Across the lands between, Miquella and Malenia are rare figures, demigods who are loved not just by soldiers or zealots, but by the broken, the discarded, the hopeful. Their legacy is one of resistance, not through conquest or fire, but through sanctuary and sacrifice. Loretta and the Golden Horns. One of the more mysterious defenders of the Erdtree is Loretta, a powerful Carian knight who is only ever encountered on horseback. She doesn't wield a traditional bow, but rather conjures one magically, using sorceries to fire devastating, great arrows made of glintstone magic. Her presence is striking, but even more intriguing are the Oracle envoys who populate the Erdtree alongside her. These strange, rotund beings with golden horns are described in their spirit ashes as harbingers of a new god or age. They appear only in two places, the royal capital of Lendel, which houses the Elden Throne, and the Erdtree, home to Miquella and Malenia, both Empyreans capable of succeeding Marika. Their presence suggests something significant is meant to happen here, something divine or catastrophic. While Miquella is widely revered for his purity and vision, Malenia too has her admirers, chief among them Mali Marais, head of the Shaded Castle. Marais and his house suffered from a hereditary illness, mirroring Malenia's lifelong struggle with the Scarlet Rot. To the sons of House Marais, Malenia was not a monster, but a symbol of perseverance. They venerated her deeply, even dedicating a portrait to her in the castle's Great Hall. While it's unclear whether Malenia ever acknowledged their devotion, the presence of Cleanrot knights along the path hints that there may have been contact between her and the castle, though this remains speculation. Statues, memory, and more inside the Erdtree we find several intriguing statues. One depicts two small children, often interpreted as young Miquella and Malenia. A misbegotten kneels at its base in quiet reverence. But in Loretta's boss chamber, a different statue appears, this time with 3 figures, one significantly taller than the others. This third figure is believed by many to be Godwyn the Golden, Miquella's older half-brother. Supporting this theory is the Golden Epitaph, a weapon described as a sword forged to mourn Godwyn's death. Its inscription reads, "O brother, Lord brother, please, die a true death." This line is believed to be a prayer from Miquella himself, grieving Godwyn's undead state, his soul trapped in death, in life, twisted into the grotesque form we find deep in the deep-root depths. The statue could be Miquella's final tribute to his brother, Malenia Millicent and the legacy of rot. With Miquella lost, entombed in Mohg's cocoon, Malenia is the only twin who remains physically present at the Erdtree. Her story intertwines closely with that of Millicent, an NPC whose entire questline revolves around uncovering Malenia's past, her struggle, and the nature of the Scarlet Rot. When Malenia fought Radahn, she held back the rot until she had no choice. Radahn was simply too powerful, and she was forced to bloom, unleashing the rot in full, poisoning Caelid, and losing her sense of self. That moment cost her everything: her dignity, her will, and the resistance to the Outer God's influence. According to Millicent, "I am of Malenia's blood, but in what capacity, I know not. I could be a sister, a daughter, or merely an offshoot. Whatever her origin, she is linked to Malenia and seeks to restore the part of her that was lost in that bloom, her pride, her identity, and her humanity." Millicent was one of 5 daughters born of the rot, found and raised by Gowry, a manipulative sorcerer who only nurtured them so he could force one, Millicent, to bloom again and become a new Scarlet Valkyrie. Gowry believed that by triggering intense trauma, Millicent would follow in Malenia's footsteps and ascend. The climax of her quest hinges on your betrayal. You can choose to betray Millicent, forcing her to blossom. But if you remain loyal and help her resist her sisters, she instead tears out the unalloyed gold needle, the very one you gave her, and dies on her own terms, declaring she would rather die than serve the rot. The needle rebirth and a final mystery if you betray Millicent. She leaves behind a scarlet bloom, a flower not unlike the one left by Malenia upon death. And while her quest ends abruptly, there are hints that it may not be truly over. The prosthesis item obtained from betraying her suggests that one day you will be reborn. It raises a compelling theory: if Millicent can bloom and be reborn, could the same apply to Malenia? The unalloyed gold needle, found after defeating Commander O'Neill, is passed from one hand to another throughout this arc. Its item description speaks of restoring dignity and purpose, a resistance against the corrupting influence of the outer god of rot. If Malenia ever returns, reborn through the needle, through Millicent, or through some unknown means, perhaps she won't be the goddess of rot, but the warrior she once was. Proud, disciplined, unyielding. It's a long shot, sure, but in the lands between, death is not always the end, and rebirth may not always be a curse. One of the more hotly debated topics in the Elden Ring community is Malenia's status as the goddess of rot. The Scarlet Aeonia item tells us that Malenia has already bloomed twice, and that a third bloom will complete her transformation into the goddess of rot. Yet, when players face her in her boss fight, her second phase is already labeled Malenia, Goddess of Rot. So, has she already bloomed 3 times? The theories vary. Some believe the 3 blooms are 1, her bloom during the fight with Radahn. 2, a small Scarlet Aeonia found in a room just before her boss arena. 3, the massive flower she erupts into during the boss fight itself. But there's one detail that complicates this near that second flower. A traveling maiden set is found, gear associated with Millicent and her sisters, and when Millicent dies, she leaves behind a similarly large bloom. That leads many to argue that the second bloom isn't Malenia's at all, but one of her sisters. If that's true, then Malenia has only bloomed twice, meaning her goddess status is still incomplete, her transformation still looming. Whether or not that's accurate, the debate reveals something deeper. Before the scarlet rot consumed the region, Malenia fought with only her blade. She didn't rely on the rot. In fact, she hated it, saw it as a curse, not a weapon. Her bloom was a last resort, a choice made not for power or glory, but out of desperation to stop an unstoppable foe. Like many characters in Elden Ring, Malenia is not cleanly good or evil. She's tragic. Her actions brought ruin, yes, but they were done out of duty, not malice. She loved her brother. She protected the people of the Erdtree. She detested the rot that gave her strength, and yet, her defeat would mean the doom of everything she tried to protect. It's the classic tragic line. Each one has been dealt a unique hand, and each responds in radically different ways. Godric and Rykard both sought power to overcome their weaknesses, but at a cost. Godric grafted limbs in desperation. Rykard fed himself to a serpent, craving immortality and rebellion. Mohg pushed further. He didn't just seek power, he stole a god. He abducted Miquella, hoping to birth a dynasty through the aid of an outer god, the Formless Mother. Radahn, though afflicted with the same scarlet rot that cursed Malenia, still held the skies together. Literally, he became a living legend, inspiring soldiers to fight even as he lost his mind. Ranni is a victim of fate, burdened by cosmic conflict. Her path is shaped by divine betrayal, the tension between the stars and the moon, and the death of her first mentor. She isolates herself not because of pride, but because she doesn't know what else to do. Morgott may be one of the most emotionally complex figures. Born an Omen and reviled by society, he still defends it. Whether from misplaced faith or desperate hope, he chooses to uphold the Golden Order, even as it continues to reject him. This is why Elden Ring's writing remains so captivating. Each demigod is more than a boss fight. Lives, wounds, not one shardbearer shares the exact same goals or path even when they seem aligned. Mohg and Rykard both embrace outer gods, but for entirely different reasons. Radahn and Malenia are both warriors of legend, yet one holds the sky and the other destroys the land. The world of Elden Ring is a choose-your-own apocalypse. A land where every region is haunted by a past mistake, a broken dream, or a desperate ambition, and every demigod you face is a reflection of the cost of power, the burden of legacy, and the cracks in divine order. Most shardbearers are optional. You could walk away, but the deeper you dig, the more you realize they are your mirrors, and the final path to becoming Elden Lord runs straight through the hearts of those who failed before you. Alright guys, that's it for today, because I am getting a little tired. I'll continue the rest of this video in another part. This one was just the beginning. Before I go, I just wanted to talk about something first. Since this is my very first video, I figured I'd share a bit about myself. My name is Rune. I really love storytelling, whether it's through games, movies, or just quiet little thoughts. My channel is all about exploring those stories, the meaning behind them, and the feelings they leave behind. Outside of this, I adore cooking, painting, gardening, and writing soft little poems. I also really enjoy ASMR, soft-spoken videos, so that's how I'll be presenting for this channel as well. Gently, calmly, and at my own pace. And I just wanted to say, please go easy on me. I know I may have mispronounced a few things, or fumbled some lores. I hope not, because I put a lot of time crafting this, and my editing as well, still a work in progress. I'm just starting to learn Premiere Pro, and I haven't quite figured out how to cut out all the little blank spaces in my clips. But I really don't want to stress too much about the video editing part, because what matters most to me is the storytelling. That's where my heart is, and that's what I want to keep focusing on. Thank you, truly, from the bottom of my heart for being here. If you enjoyed this, it would mean so much if you could like the video and maybe subscribe. I promise I'll keep getting better, and I'll always speak from a place of love and curiosity. Take care of yourself, be kind to your heart, and I'll see you very soon